Good morning from a very frosty Monday morning here in Bedfordshire. Welcome back to Vet Nurse Rambling. I'm Ellie, and today I wanted to talk to you guys about owning a puppy for the first time. Obviously, this is an incredibly exciting time in any family's life. It's adorable having a new puppy, but there can also be some trials and tribulations that come along with that are very important to highlight before you take the plunge, so that you know what you're getting yourself in for. So as a vet nurse, a lot of the advice that I give other pet owners about owning a puppy for the first time are based on information that I've learned through my training or through working with colleagues who have advice that they've used for years and years. But there is also an element of basing it on my own experiences. So my dog Rosie is 3. She is a working cocker, so that opens a whole new can of worms because they are quite crazy. And she's not necessarily been the easiest dog to have as a first dog. We had a lot of difficulties to start off with recall training. To say that was challenging would be a bit of an understatement. She was challenging. She's still not great. She's actually just run off after some pheasants this morning, but that's fine. I've kind of got strategies and methods to help work through that and try and make walks a little bit less stressful. So I'll just be covering a couple of aspects of owning a puppy for the first time and hopefully giving you some tips that you can take away to use once your new addition arrives. So whether you're getting your puppy as the first dog of your family, or whether it's an addition to an already existing canine family, there are a couple of things that it's worth considering before you actually go ahead and choose the puppy that you're going for. So obviously rescuing is an incredibly rewarding way to add a new addition to the family. There are so many dogs in the UK that need homes. Adopt, don't shop is one of the well-known slogans that we see on social media nowadays, and it's definitely worth considering if you are thinking about getting a dog for the first time, or indeed if you've already got dogs and you want to add another one to your family. If you're planning on buying a puppy from a breeder, there are definitely a few things that you want to consider before you go ahead and pay your deposit. Unfortunately, especially in the UK, there is an increasing problem with puppy farming, so it's really important to know your stuff before you go and visit a breeder. So making sure that you get a good feeling about a breeder when you first contact them is really important. So maybe send them an email or give them a call if they advertise their phone number, just to kind of gauge how they are with you. With the number of crossbreeds on the increase as well, looking for kind of documentation about kennel club registration or various tests that need to be done is becoming less of a kind of pertinent thing that you'd look for when you're looking through puppies online or in the newspaper. But if you are buying a pure breed, it's important just to make sure that you are going to be getting one that has been bred well. So the Kennel Club will have kind of breed standards for each individual breed, which basically stipulates that certain tests need to be carried out in order to stop congenital problems being passed through generations. So for example, with working cockers, one of the things that they're tested for is an eye problem called progressive retinal atrophy. So Rosie's parents were both tested for that, to make sure that they weren't going to be passing it on to the litter that they were having together. It's also now law in the UK for all puppies to be microchipped before they are a certain number of weeks old and before they're sold to a new pet owner. So make sure that that is something that is stipulated on the advertisement or in the email that you get from the breeder before you go. If it's not, that's something worth questioning because it's the law, so you want to definitely look into that. And maybe on more of a personal level rather than a professional level, I think it's really important that the breeder's happy for you to go and visit as many times as you want to before you collect that puppy. It shows that you're invested, it shows that you are desperate for this new addition to come home with you, and it also shows you that they are happy to sell the puppy to you because they know that you're going to be a loving owner. So with Rosie, we would go and visit her every week from 4 weeks old. We took her home when she was 8 weeks old, and not once did her breeder complain about us visiting. He was always really accommodating and kind of laughed and rolled his eyes when I said which day can we come this week? But that's a really good sign. If the breeder's happy to accommodate you visiting as much as you want, that gives you a good impression about them, and it also gives them a good impression about you. Obviously, if you're travelling miles and miles to go and see your puppy every single week, it might not be feasible to visit as regularly as we did, but if you can, definitely try and fit in at least 2 visits before you collect the puppy, just to make sure that everything is as it should be, that you've definitely chosen the right puppy, which we'll come on to, and that you've got a good feeling about the breeder as well. So choosing the puppy that's right for you, everyone has an opinion on this, obviously. A lot of people will say that it's really important to go for the most confident puppy that you see on the day that you go and visit. That's not necessarily always the best thing, but obviously you want them to be confident. You don't necessarily want to go for the one that's kind of shy and hiding in the corner and not wanting to interact with you at all. Someone told me after we'd got Rosie that a really good test is to take in a pair of car keys and jangle them and watch the reaction of all the puppies in the litter to the noise and to the visuals, and just see what their kind of response was to that. Obviously some dogs will kind of come up and be really curious and have a little sniff. Other dogs will recoil in terror and kind of cower in the corner, and that's not necessarily the kind of dog that you want to be taking home. But generally speaking, you want a dog that is confident, friendly and happy to interact with you. When choosing your puppy, it's also important to have discussed with your family or your partner or whoever it is that you're going to be sharing the dog with, or with yourself perhaps if you're going to be having it as an independent owner, which gender you want to go for. Male and female dogs have very different personalities a lot of the time. Obviously the breed will also determine their personalities as well, which we'll come on to, but just have a think about which gender you want to go for. Generally speaking, in my experience anyway, male dogs can be far more laid back, whereas I find that female dogs can be a little bit more needy, sometimes a bit more submissive, but also sometimes a bit more sassy. Rosie is very, very sassy. So just have a think about it and make sure that you've had the conversation before you get there, so that you have a rough idea as to what page you're all on when you get there to visit the puppy. So choosing the right breed for you, wow. This could be a video in itself, to be honest. There are so many dog breeds out there, and they're just increasing by feels like the second. There are so many crossbreeds nowadays as well. So making sure that you choose a dog that is going to be suitable for your family, for your lifestyle, and for what you want out of owning that dog is so crucially important. So there are lots of different kind of classes of breeds. So you can have working dogs, where they have quite a high scent drive or prey drive, and they need a lot of exercise and a lot of mental stimulation. There are toy breeds, which are obviously much smaller. They don't need as much exercise. They enjoy being lap dogs. They maybe need a little bit more in terms of attention. And then you've got your large or your giant breeds. So you've got Great Danes in that category, or Newfoundlands. And obviously they have their own requirements for ownership. All breeds unfortunately are predisposed to problems, so it's also important to be aware of these before you crack on and get your puppy or choose the breed that you're going to go for. So doing plenty of research is really important. The Kennel Club website has loads of information about all the different types of breeds and what problems they might be predisposed to. So on either the first or second visit of you going to see your puppy, it's a really nice idea to perhaps take a blanket or a t-shirt that smells like you for you to leave with the puppy and his or her litter, for the period of time up until you take him or her home, so that they have a nice kind of familiar scent, but they also start getting used to your scent as well. So that's a really, really nice idea, and hopefully the breeder will be accommodating for that as well. And perhaps even taking a couple of toys. If you decide a name for your puppy before they come home, then you can obviously tell the breeder and they can start trying to kind of not teach it its name, but just start familiarising the puppy with the sound of their name. Rosie kind of came knowing her name already, which was fantastic. Her breeder was really good at calling the puppies in for their dinner, and as he gave them their meals, he would kind of repeat their name again and again and again, which worked really well. So she knew her name before she came to us. I don't know whether she knows it anymore because when I shout it, she definitely doesn't come running. Before you get your puppy, it's also really important to puppy proof your house. So a lot of people will opt for stair gates to make sure that they can't run up and down the stairs. That can be bad for their joints from a young age. So if you are planning on letting your dog go upstairs, then whilst they're a puppy, it's probably best to kind of carry them up. But obviously a lot of people choose not to let them upstairs. Rosie comes upstairs. So a stair gate is really important, making sure that any cables and wires are all kind of tidied away so there's no hazard of them chewing through them, making sure that any expensive rugs or furnitures or cushions aren't in the room or in the area where the puppy's going to be, because it's not their fault if they chew it, they don't know the cost of things, so eradicating that problem before it even arises is probably a wise idea. And just making sure that the house has no kind of obvious hazards to a puppy, making sure that everything is put away nice and tidily and that there's nothing too valuable that they could potentially break. It's also probably sensible to allocate them some area of kind of hard floor so that if they do have any accidents in the house, it's nice and easy to clean them up. If you have any other pets at home, then it's also important to consider how they're going to react to the new addition coming back with you in a couple of weeks' time. So if you've got dogs or cats, just think about how they're going to feel having this new crazy hyper puppy in their home. Make sure they've got plenty of safe space to go so they can retreat if they're not really enjoying all of the hyperness and activity, and just make sure that they don't feel like they're being pushed out at all. Once you've got your puppy home, also make sure that you allocate plenty of time to give them one-on-one time, as in your adult pet, so that they don't feel like they've been pushed out or they've been forgotten about. So make sure they're still getting the fuss and attention that they need to make them feel like they're still a valued member of the family. Another aspect of kind of pre-planning before you get your puppy is probably to think about where you're going to be taking them to the vets. So have that in place ready so that you don't have lots of administration things to do once your puppy actually arrives. So find a vet that's local to you, perhaps go in and introduce yourself and explain that you want to register your new puppy at the practice, and just make sure that you get a good vibe from them. They should be accommodating in terms of giving you advice about vaccinations, and they'll also be happy to give you advice about nutrition, behaviour, training, and all kind of general healthcare prevention tips as well. There are lots of different brands of vaccination out there, and some breeders will have the first part of the vaccine done before you take the puppy home, depending on the age they are at collection. It's probably sensible to just double check with the vet practice that you've registered with which brand of vaccine they've been using, just to make sure that they're compatible with what the puppy's already been given. It would be frustrating and also kind of unnecessary for the puppy to have more vaccines than needed, than required. So making sure that you've done your homework beforehand and knowing what vaccinations they've had already will be much better for you and for the puppy as well. So just give your vets a ring and they'll be happy to chat with you about the vaccination brand and the protocol that they follow. Your puppy will probably come to you on the food that the breeder's been feeding them, and it's really important not to suddenly change their food as soon as they come home to you. With the change of environment and lots of stress in their life in terms of leaving their litter and their mother, it's really important to make sure that you don't suddenly change their diet, because that can lead to a whole host of digestive upsets. If you're not happy with the food that the breeder's been feeding and you've got another food lined up that you'd like to give, then have it ready at home, but perhaps just gradually start to introduce it and make the transition nice and slow. Even if it takes 10 days or 2 weeks to move the puppy across onto the new food, that's much better than doing it suddenly and running the risk of them getting an upset tummy. So be nice and gradual with it and ensure that the food that you're swapping them onto is designed for their life stage. So you want to make sure that it specifies that it's for puppies, because that's going to have the correct nutrients to help their bones grow to be nice and strong. And it's also important to kind of prioritise breed specific. So if you've got a large breed dog, for example Labrador and bigger, then it's important that it's large breed puppy food. Again, this is going to be tailored to their growth and make sure that their growth period is nice and slow and steady, which will hopefully help to eradicate any joint problems in the future. So far, this video has been preparing for your puppy to come home to you, and I think I'm going to leave it at that today, because that's quite a lot to take in, particularly if you've not even got your puppy yet. You want to make sure that you've got everything lined up, you've got all of your ducks in a row, so that when your new addition finally does arrive, you're ready to hit the ground running and you know what you're doing. So I'll focus on aspects of kind of new parenthood, shall we say, in a later video. But for now, that should give you food for thought in terms of what to prepare for with your new puppy. So I hope that you guys have found that video useful. If you've got any suggestions, any questions or queries or concerns, then please do just get in touch with me, and I'll see you soon for another video. Thanks for watching.